Alright, so this is another video that I thought would be interesting. It just came to me, not to say I'm just some genius, but I think that it's good. It goes a little something like this. Stripping you down and then building you back up. Much as the same way as basic training is used to strip the individual down and make you into a soldier, a warrior, and a member of a team. Such as the way of the soldier's creed, what is taught in the United States Army or the Marine Corps or whatever. And in a way, that's what's happening right now. You think about the death of Queen Elizabeth. And people are upset not necessarily just because of the death of her, but it's also because of what it represents. It represents a fairly peaceful time. Like I said, fairly peaceful. I mean, not to say that it was purely peaceful, but it was a time where, for the most part, get off me, you damn bee. Why don't you fly? Alright, anyway. Come on, bee, come on. I don't know why I smell so damn good or something, I don't know. Anyway, and the mosquitoes are on me, but that's a whole other thing. Alright, but it represents the end of a time, The end of monarchy is near, It already ended in Russia. It already ended in Germany in very different ways. The Russian monarchy was destroyed violently, and then the rest of the family kind of disappeared, and a lot of them ended up in France and the U.S. and kind of blended in the background. The German monarchs, the Hohenzollerns, once again, they still exist, but they don't really, it's not really mentioned in the same way. The end of the current reign, of the British royal family represents, the end of, 500, 600 years worth of struggle from the, like the Tudors and all these other ones that have been made films about, from Queen Victoria and all these others, And, we see, of course, people chomping at the bit. People sense the weakness, just as animals sense the weakness, And so the hyenas come up, and that once proud lion is going to be eaten by hyenas who never have the strength to take a lion on one-on-one. But they're going to get it when it's old and sick. And we see that's what's occurring right now. Where there were people who were going to, jump on the coffin, I'm sure, and violate the corpse in some way. And people who were hurling insults, this and that. It did occur. And we saw knife attacks and everything else in London. But to me, it took a while to get to this point, I apologize, but this is stripping us of our past. And I think, unfortunately, this is what's needed. Just as, the Qing dynasty and the idea of royalty and the mandate of heaven largely was stripped from the Chinese people. Of course, it's still there. And it, it's much more preached in a different way with Xi Jinping currently. But the origins of it, and the ideas of, monarchs ruling, doesn't really exist the same way. And sadly, that's just the way it goes. Being stripped of being a serf and suddenly becoming a wage earner and working in the city. Working in a factory or working as a as a maid or whatever the case may be, or whichever, right? And so what we're seeing now is going to be another stripping. And it being just a simple wage earner and going to a job where you work Monday through Friday from 9 to 5 or whichever, that's changing as well. And they'll build you up in another way. And a new contract will be created, The idea of a monarch ruling over, the UK is dying. King Charles III, more than likely, probably won't even be that effective. It didn't matter anyway. They've been stripped of most of their power anyway. They still have all their money, but their power is nil. The neo-libs will continue to push their ideas, but in a way they're trying to go back in time and bring you back to being a peasant and a serf, working for the Lord Jeff Bezos or the Lord Bill Gates, on his land. And I think that's where we're headed. Building a society up in a certain way, and then being stripped of it. Building up, stripping it, building up, stripping it. This is the ebb and flow of human existence. The reason I say that is because you see, Americans, of course, who are just like, I'm glad the Queen's dead or whatever. And you have some that are like, at least respectful of the Queen and whatnot. Me, I'm fairly neutral towards it. I know all the folks that have vested interest in terms of financial to talk about what Queen Elizabeth II did that was awful and all these sorts of things, the Mau Mau uprising, whichever, I don't have a vested interest like that. I'm just some random guy who has a regular job who makes these videos, so I don't need to constantly promote, the end of colonialism, or this and that. A revolution will have to come. A revolution will have to occur. I'm just going to show you the back of the dumpster with the lovely graffiti. Who cares? At least it'll be something that you can enjoy. This is what happens. The UK is being stripped of the idea that they are simply, servants of the king or the queen. The subjects, I should say, that's the word. That you are a subject of the... I'm trying to think of the name of the house of the current British Empire. I can't think of it. But anyway, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for all the dead air and whatnot. But I'm trying to think carefully of it. It sounded so good in my head at first, and then kind of whizzed it. But basically, we're all going to be stripped of our views on what we identify as. And those ideas will change. Now, ultimately, I still hold the same view of the game doesn't change, it's just the players. You're still going to be a pawn for something else. But the way you will be seen as a pawn will be different. There will still be, the gentries and the janissaries and whatnot who will gladly kiss the ring for their measly little job where they can have their nice little house and whatnot and be, a little bit above the commoner who, works his job and toils in the fields or toils in a factory or whatever, and that they're above that. I work for the Democratic Party. I work for, a non-profit. They'll still exist. the bureaucrat will exist as well. You know, the royal nut washer, you know. But there's another part of it. Like I said, there's so many aspects of it. And we see the UK, of course, continuing to fall further and further away from any sort of relevance or power, you know. But I think that, you know, there are some folks who say that, you know, colonialism has finally come to the average Anglo-Saxon or Brighton, whatever you want to say. And there's a point to that. Or the British Empire died, is finally dead. I think both can be true. Where, yeah, the large empire where at least the average, you know, yeah, I'm trying to think of it now. The average Cockney, for a time, you know, was able to at least somewhat, you know, have pride in, you know, the glorious empire or something like that, and be able to go to India or something like that. You know, or go to South Africa and start over anew, or Australia, being forced to go to Australia. But nowadays, where do the Brits go? Are they going to go to Spain? You know? And the death of Queen Elizabeth is finally the idea that time has changed. And now the UK will end up as Russia and Germany and just kind of become, at least to a point, more of a republic, you know. Yeah, the royal family, the Windsors. Oh, finally, here we go. 12 minutes in, I finally get it. Yeah, the Windsors. There we go. Yeah, the House of Windsor, you know, will continue to exist, but they will continue to move things, you know, behind the curtain. But the UK will start anew. Just as the same as the United States will. You know? At least new in terms of not experienced in this country, on this land. You know? Meaning, you know, like balkanization, this and that. I mean, to a point. There'll be a time where balkanization will occur and they will be independent entities, independent nations within the former United States. And then eventually some leader will come along and reunite the country so that they can, you know, LARP about the new America and the new, you know, the new United States from sea to shining sea and whatnot, you know. But I believe that's what it's about. Stripping us down and forcing people to say, you are no longer this, now you're this. You know, the merchant, I mean, overall, it doesn't really necessarily change anything. A merchant's still going to be a merchant. An artisan is still going to be an artisan. You know, the peasant will still be a peasant. Lumpen proletariat will still be lumpen proletariat. It just depends on how they're seen by the larger system, right? That's why lefties try to reach out to the lumpen proletariat. Of course, they just want to use the lumpen proletariat to do all their dirty work and basically go out and, you know, bust heads and, you know, eliminate people who are enemies of, you know, enemies of the proletariat, of course. But, you know, that's beyond the point. I've lost the point on this, but basically we see that, you know, we will get torn down in many ways. We'll be built up in others, you know. And I think to a certain degree, you could see the death of Queen Elizabeth as the tearing down of the idea that you are simply a subject of the British Empire and that now you can be something else. You know, maybe reach back to your older times and trying to be an Anglo-Saxon. Or trying to be something else. Or reimagine it and redefine it in your own way. Because the death of the queen is also death of an identity. There are many people who profited from it, that received medals, and that people who gave their lives for the empire, for queen and country, for God, king, and country, and all that. And now that view really isn't respected. Now it's for the pound, for the money. You know? I think that's all I really have to say. Honestly, that was a long bit of rant. Hopefully that made sense. Please tell me in the comments if that made any sense. I know it's kind of like, a lot of the time with these videos, it's kind of like the meme of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where he's got the conspiracy theory look with the board with the strings going to one thing and another with the cigarette in his hand. Charlie has it, so it kind of feels that way to a point where I'm just like, I'm going to go on this little mosey around, and then I'll eventually get back to my point. But this is what happens when you get old. A lot of stuff just pops in your head, and you think that it's worth something, and then you're just like, oh, it wasn't. Such is the way of getting older. You too will end up being old. That's another aspect as well, that, remembering how it used to be, and then trying to make sense of what you are now versus what you were then. There's a time when I was younger where, and I still feel I still feel like a kid in some ways, where I'm not quite sure how to handle situations and whatnot. But I handle it in maybe more of a, in an HR sort of way. It's like, no, oh no, we're not going to do that to you. No, oh no, we'll be sure to take care of it. No problem, sure. And, doing it in a different way than just being more blunt. There's a place for being blunt, but I feel like I'm not quite ready, and I don't have the cojones to go there yet. But anyway, eventually I'll be stripped down, and that sort of, courtesy and that sort of professional attitude may be stripped from me, and I'll be rebuilt in a different way. I don't know. I just try to accept things as they are, not what they wish to be. Because we all, like I said, we all live in cope and LARP land of what would it be like if this person took over, and what if we had done that? Yeah, absolutely. I think that's perfectly healthy, mentally speaking, to do that and to have the ideas of it. But you don't want to live in that LARP where you don't know what's real and what's not. You have to be able to just accept things as they are. It's a fine line. But anyway, honestly, I could go on for probably another 10 minutes of just straight LARP, but let's go ahead and just end it here. Hopefully y'all enjoyed that. Once again, here's a little bit more graffiti there. Hopefully y'all enjoyed that. See you later. Goodbye.